So today we're going to be doing the last extension of one-step equations. We've done one-step equations when it's just adding, and then we also have done subtracting, multiplying, and one-step equations with dividing. Alright, so now we're going to do one-step equations when there is a rational coefficient. And the coefficient is nothing more than the number that is attached to the variable. So for number one, the coefficient would be 5.6 because it is attached or multiplied by the x. Alright? So for number two, it would be negative 13.2, and so on and so forth. So a rational coefficient can either be a decimal or a fraction. So if we look at number 4, the coefficient will be 2/3 because it is attached to the variable, which is n. Alright? So two ways to solve this. One, when there is a decimal, that's the coefficient, and two, when the coefficient is a fraction. Alright, so when the coefficient is a fraction, is a decimal, treat it as a whole number. Which means is, if this was a whole number, if this was 5 instead of 5.6x, alright, then we know to just divide by 5 on both sides because 5 is being multiplied by the variable. The same thing occurs when it is a decimal. Alright? So if we have negative 19.6 equals 5.6x, what is happening to the x? It is being multiplied by 5.6. So we want to do the inverse operation. So if they multiply, we divide both sides of the equal sign by 5.6. Alright? Bring down your equal sign. As you see, I divided it here. I did not do divided by 5.6 on the side. I want to make sure that I do it under the 5.6. Alright, so we know that these two cancel out. And we put in the calculator 19.6 integer key divided by 5.6. We get negative 3.5. So this x equals negative 3.5. Now, if you were to get a word problem, it might say, what is x equal to in this equation? It still is equal to negative 3.5. No need to say negative 3.5x because it's not negative 3.5x. It's simply just negative 3.5 equals x. Now, of course, just like any other equation, we want to check our solution. This is what it means to check your solution. You want to rewrite the top problem. Negative 19.6 equals 5.6x. Alright, now, instead of on the second line, instead of writing x, you're going to write your answer. So that is negative 19.6 equals 5.6 times negative 3.5. Okay? And then you just solve it. Negative 19.6 equals 5.6 times 3.5. 5.6 times 3.5 integer key. That definitely gives me negative 19.6. So I know that this answer is correct. Okay? Now, I want you to try number 2. Number 2. Pause it. Alright, so for number 2, we have 323.4 equals negative 13.2x. Alright, so the first thing you should have done was notice that the coefficient is a decimal. So you can treat it just as a whole number and divide negative 13.2 on both sides. Equals. This cancels out because negative 13.2 divided by negative 13.2 equals 1, which is 1x, which is still the same thing as x. So that's why it cancels out. So then you can do 323.4 divided by 13.2, 24.5. If I wanted to check it, I'm going to rewrite the first line as it is. I'm going to be looking for this part. Divide both sides by a negative 13.2. I'm sorry. I'm treating it as this equation. Alright, now sub in my answer. 323.4 equals negative 13.2 times x. 24.5. Put it in the calculator. 13.2 integer key times 24.5. Uh-oh, got something wrong. 323.4. Oh, that's what I did. 13.2 integer key times 24.5. That gives me negative. That gives me negative 323.4, which means my answer should have been negative. Which is why this is a prime example on checking your work. And make sure you do the solution. In order for messing up and just doing 24.5 as a positive number, when I checked it, I knew that that would give me a negative solution, but my solution is positive. So in order for this to be positive, both numbers have to be negative. All right, so now for number 3, we have negative 3 over 5, or negative 3/5, x equals negative 6 over 25. So, number 2, when the coefficient is a fraction, multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal is, in such terms, flipping your numerator and your denominator, all right? In such a sense, if I have 1/4, want to do the multiplicative inverse. So if I have 1/4 and I want to find the reciprocal, I know I have 4 over 1. How do I know that? Because when I multiply, it's 4 over 4, you still get 1, okay? So, I have, and I'm going to put this number out to the side because you'll see how we're going to do this. So I have negative 3/5 x equals negative 6 over 25. I want to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of the coefficient. So if the coefficient is negative 3 over 5, I want to multiply both sides by the reciprocal, okay? Do not get caught up with the negative sign, okay? Just leave it at the top. So I have negative 5 over 3 times negative 5 over 3. So once again, I'm going to take this one slow. I multiply both sides of the equal sign by the reciprocal. The coefficient's reciprocal. I did not do the reciprocal of negative 6 over 25 because that is not the coefficient. The coefficient is attached to the variable. So now I can multiply. So I know this cancels out, right? Okay, that cancels out. So I'm left with x equals 30 over 75. Okay? X equals 30 over 75. And if I reduce that, I get 2 over 3. Divide top and bottom by 15, all right? Of course, I still need to check my answer. I'm sorry. I still need to check my answer. So, I do the same thing. Negative 3 over 8, negative 3 over 5x equals negative 6 over 25. So when we're doing our solution, the first step is always to rewrite the equation as it is. You want to rewrite the equation as it is. Now, fill in x, sub in x for your answer. Negative 3 over 5 times 2/5 should equal negative 6 over 25. So I have negative 3 times 2, which is negative 6. 5 times 5 is 25, and that does equal negative 6 over 25. Alright, so now, number 4. If you think you have it, you can pause it and try it. But I'm going to go ahead and do this one as well because I know number 3 was a bit much. But of course, you can always pause it and try it on your own first. So we have 2/3 n equal negative 22. Alright, so we're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of the coefficient. So if I have 2/3, I know the reciprocal is 3 over 2. I'm going to multiply that on both sides. Alright, so 3 over 2 times 2 over 3 equals 1. So that's 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So we know this cancels out. We're left with n equals, and we have to multiply here, okay? Whole number goes over 1. So that's negative 22 times 3, which is negative 66, over 1 times 2, which is 2. And we can reduce this even more to negative 33. Negative 66 divided by 2 is negative 33. Alright, so now we want to check our answer, okay? That's how we know it's right. So I'm going to rewrite the equation as it is. Okay? So now I have 2/3 times negative 33 equals negative 22. When we're multiplying a fraction and a whole number, the whole number must be put over 1. So now we have 2 times negative 33, which is negative 66, divided by 3 times 1, which is 3, which is negative 22. It does make sense because negative 22 equals negative 22. Alright, now we have this last one. I want you to pause it and try on your own. Number 5. Alright, so we're just going to jump into it. We have 1/4 y equals 8. Well, my apologies. We want to multiply by the reciprocal. So if I have 1/4, my reciprocal I know is 4 over 1. Okay? I multiply that on both sides. So now I have 4 over 1 times 1 over 4, which cancels out. So I'm left with y equals 8 times 4 over 1. Okay? We can understand that 4 over 1 equals 4. And can just do 8 times 4, which is 32. Or we can just do it like we normally would and put the whole number over 1. 8 times 4 is 32. 1 times 1 is 1, so it's 32 over 1, or just simply 32. Now we wanted to check our work. I'm going to rewrite the equation as it is and just sub in my answer for y. 1/4 times 32 equals 8. Put this over 1. 1 times 32 is 32. 4 times 1 is 4. If I divide 32 by 4, I get 8. And I know my answer is the same. All right, now, understand when we're subbing, when I'm subbing in 1/4, when I'm subbing in 32, my answer for y, I'm not just putting in 1/4 32. This is times 32 because this is 1/4 times y. So whatever you sub in for y, whether it is 5, it'll be 1/4 times 5. You're multiplying here, okay? So that is one-step equations with rational coefficients. If it's a decimal, you want to treat it as a whole number. If they divide, you multiply. If they multiply, you divide. If they the coefficient is a fraction, you want to multiply both sides by the reciprocal, okay, of the coefficient.